The rain came without warning that Tuesday afternoon. One moment the sky was gray and quiet. The next moment water was pouring down like someone had opened a tap in the clouds. Priya had just left her office building, clutching her leather bag close to her chest, trying to protect the presentation papers inside. She had spent 3 weeks preparing those documents for a meeting with potential investors, and now they were getting soaked through the bag's worn zipper. She ran toward the nearest shelter she could find, a small bookshop with a green awning that stretched out over the sidewalk. Her shoes were completely wet, her kurta stuck to her shoulders, and her hair dripped water down her back. She stood there, catching her breath, watching the rain create rivers in the street gutters. Other people rushed past with umbrellas and newspapers held over their heads, everyone trying to escape the sudden storm. That's when she heard footsteps splashing quickly behind her. A man rushed under the same awning, shaking his head like a wet dog and laughing at himself. He wore a simple blue shirt that was now dark with water, and he carried a camera bag that he immediately checked with worried hands. Priya moved slightly to give him more space under the narrow shelter. They stood at opposite ends, two strangers brought together by bad weather and bad timing. Priya pulled out her phone to call her colleague and explain why she would miss the meeting. The screen was black, dead, completely out of battery. She pressed the power button again and again, hoping for some miracle, but nothing happened. Her heart sank. This meeting was important, really important. It could mean funding for the small business idea she had been developing for 2 years. Without her phone, she couldn't even call to reschedule or explain what happened. She must have made some sound of frustration because the man looked over at her. He didn't say anything at first, just noticed her staring at the dead phone in her hand. Then he reached into his camera bag and pulled out a small power bank. He held it out toward her without speaking, just a simple gesture of help. Priya hesitated. She had lived in the city long enough to be cautious about strangers. But there was something about his expression, something genuine and uncomplicated, that made her accept. She took the power bank, with a quiet thank you, and plugged in her phone. The little charging symbol appeared on the screen, and she felt a wave of relief wash over her. They stood in silence for a moment, just watching the rain. It was the kind of rain that made everything else disappear. The noise of traffic faded behind the sound of water hitting pavement. The world became smaller, contained under that green awning. "I had a feeling today would go wrong," the man said suddenly, still looking at the rain. "I woke up late, spilled tea on my favorite book, and then forgot my umbrella. Should have just stayed in bed." Priya smiled despite her ruined day. "I spent 3 weeks preparing for a meeting that started 10 minutes ago. These papers in my bag are probably destroyed. And my phone died right when I needed it most. So yes, I understand that feeling completely." "What kind of meeting?" he asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. She found herself explaining about her business idea, how she wanted to start a small company that connected local artists with customers who appreciated handmade things. She talked about her presentation, about the investors who were probably sitting in a conference room right now, wondering why she never showed up. He listened carefully, nodding at the right moments, asking questions that showed he was really paying attention. He told her about his work at a community center, how he used photography to teach kids from difficult backgrounds to see beauty in everyday things. He had been out taking photos of the old city architecture when the rain started. His camera was expensive, borrowed from the center, and he had been terrified it would get damaged. 20 minutes passed like 20 seconds. The rain began to slow down, changing from a heavy pour to a light drizzle. People started emerging from their shelters, testing the weather with outstretched hands. Priya's phone had charged enough to turn on. She unplugged it and handed back the power bank. "Thank you," she said, meaning it deeply. "You saved me today." "Just a power bank," he replied with a smile. "I hope your meeting people understand about the rain." They stood there for another moment, neither quite ready to leave. Then Priya took a breath and stepped out into the drizzle. She looked back once and waved. He waved back. She walked toward the metro station, her wet shoes squeaking with each step, thinking about the kind stranger who helped without expecting anything in return. She didn't even know his name. She would probably never see him again. But something about that conversation, That small moment of human kindness on a terrible day stayed with her as she rode the train home. It stayed with her that evening as she tried to salvage her presentation papers. It stayed with her as she fell asleep that night, wondering about the man with the camera and the gentle smile. The rain had stopped hours ago, but somehow, in a way she couldn't quite explain, something inside her had started. Friday morning arrived with bright sunshine and clear skies, the kind of day that made the previous week's rain feel like a distant memory. Priya walked into the offices of Hope Foundation, a local community organization where she had recently volunteered to help with their annual fundraiser. Her company encouraged employees to take on social projects, and Priya had chosen this one because it focused on education and skills training for underprivileged youth. It felt meaningful, something beyond spreadsheets and quarterly reports. The coordinator had told her to come to the main conference room for the volunteer orientation meeting. Priya found the room easily, a bright space with walls covered in photos of smiling children and successful program graduates. A few other volunteers were already sitting around a large table, chatting and introducing themselves. She took a seat near the window and pulled out her notebook. The door opened again, and someone walked in carrying a stack of folders. Priya glanced up casually, then froze. It was him. The man from the rain, the one with the camera and the power bank and the kind smile. He looked just as surprised to see her, his eyes widening in recognition. For a second, neither of them moved. Then his face broke into a warm smile. "The presentation lady," he said simply. "The camera guy," she replied, unable to stop herself from smiling back. The other volunteers looked between them, confused by the exchange. He introduced himself properly this time as Arjun, the volunteer coordinator for the fundraiser project. She introduced herself to everyone else, but her eyes kept returning to him. What were the chances? In a city of millions, they had somehow ended up in the same room again. The meeting started, and Arjun explained the fundraiser plan. They needed to organize an event that would raise money for new computers and books for the center's library. He divided people into different teams for decorations, publicity, catering, coordination, and sponsorship. He assigned Priya to the sponsorship team, which he was leading himself. She told herself the flutter in her stomach was just coincidence. Over the next 3 weeks, Priya and Arjun worked closely together. They met after her office hours, sitting in coffee shops with laptops open, drafting proposals to send to local businesses. They visited potential sponsors together, presenting their case for why the community center deserved support. Arjun had a way of talking about the children at the center that made everyone want to help. He shared stories about individual kids, their dreams and struggles, making the cause feel personal and urgent. Priya discovered she was good at the business side of things, at creating professional presentations and negotiating donation amounts. They made a natural team. Where he was emotional and passionate, she was organized and practical. Where she worried about details, he reminded her of the bigger picture. During lunch breaks, they stopped talking about work and started talking about everything else. Arjun told her about growing up in a small town, about his mother, who taught him to find joy in simple things, about his love for old Hindi songs and street food. Priya shared stories about her strict father who wanted her to be an engineer, about her rebellious decision to study business instead, about her dream of one day running her own company where creativity mattered more than profit margins. She learned that he had been engaged once, 3 years ago, to someone his family had chosen. The relationship had ended badly when he realized they wanted completely different lives. She had wanted stability and tradition. He had wanted purpose and adventure. The breakup had been painful, leaving him questioning whether he was being selfish or simply honest with himself. Priya understood that feeling more than he knew. She had dated someone in college who made her feel small, who criticized her ambitions and called her ideas unrealistic. It had taken her 2 years after that relationship ended to trust her own judgment again, to believe that wanting more from life didn't make her difficult or demanding. These conversations happened naturally, without force or awkwardness. They talked while walking back from sponsor meetings, while waiting for coffee orders, while sitting on the center's front steps watching kids play in the courtyard. Priya found herself looking forward to these volunteer evenings more than anything else in her week. She told herself it was just friendship, just two people who happened to get along well, but she noticed small things. The way Arjun's face lit up when she walked into a room, the way he remembered details about her life, asking about her difficult project at work or whether her father had called, the way their hands would accidentally brush when reaching for the same document, and how neither of them would pull away quite as quickly as they should. The fundraiser evening arrived faster than anyone expected. The community center's main hall had been transformed with colorful decorations, string lights hanging from the ceiling, and tables arranged in neat rows. Local artists had donated paintings for a silent auction. A small stage was set up for performances by the children, and the smell of home-cooked food filled the air. Priya stood near the entrance, checking off names as guests arrived, her heart beating with nervous excitement. The event was everything they had hoped for and more. Parents came with their families. Local business owners attended in formal clothes, and the children performed dances and songs they had practiced for weeks. Arjun moved through the crowd like he was born for this, greeting everyone warmly, making sure the kids felt confident before going on stage, and thanking sponsors personally. Priya watched him from across the room and felt something shift inside her chest, something she had been trying to ignore for weeks. When the formal program ended and the crowd thinned to just the volunteers and a few lingering guests, everyone relaxed. They had exceeded their fundraising goal by 30%. The center director gave a short speech thanking everyone, but especially praising Arjun and Priya for their dedication. The remaining volunteers decided to celebrate at a small cafe down the street, a place that stayed open late and served the best chai in the neighborhood. The group squeezed into a corner booth, laughing and recounting funny moments from the evening. Someone ordered samosas and pakoras for everyone. The conversation was loud and cheerful, full of the relief that comes after weeks of hard work finally paying off. But as the night grew later, people started leaving one by one, making excuses about early morning plans or long commutes home. Eventually, only Priya and Arjun remained, sitting across from each other with empty cups between them. The cafe was nearly deserted now, just an old man reading a newspaper in the far corner and a tired waiter cleaning tables. The overhead fan created a gentle breeze, and somewhere in the background, old radio songs played softly. "I should probably head home," Priya said, but she didn't move to get up. "I'll walk with you," Arjun offered quickly. "It's late." They left the cafe and walked slowly through the quiet streets. The city felt different at this hour, calmer and more honest somehow. Streetlights created pools of yellow light on the pavement, and the night air was cool against their skin. They walked without talking at first, just comfortable in the silence. Then Arjun stopped walking. They were standing under a large neem tree, its branches creating shadows on the ground. He turned to look at her, and his expression was serious in a way she hadn't seen before. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. "That day it rained. When we met under the bookshop awning, I almost didn't leave my apartment that morning. I had been feeling lost for months, just going through motions, wondering if anything I did actually mattered. I was questioning everything about my life, about my choices." Priya listened without interrupting, sensing he needed to say this. "Meeting you changed something," he continued. "Working with you these past weeks, I remembered why I started doing this work in the first place. You made me remember that good things can happen unexpectedly, that sometimes the universe puts people in your path exactly when you need them." Her throat felt tight. She knew she should say something, but words seemed inadequate. "I'm not good at pretending," Arjun said, taking a small step closer. "So, I'm just going to be honest. I like you, Priya. Not just as a friend or a colleague. I think about you when you're not around. I look for excuses to make our meetings last longer. And I know this might complicate things, or make everything awkward. But I couldn't let tonight end without telling you." Priya felt her heart hammering in her chest. Part of her wanted to protect herself, to make a joke and change the subject, to keep the walls up that had kept her safe for so long. But another part of her, a braver part, wanted something different. "I've been scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. After my last relationship, I promised myself I wouldn't let anyone close again. It felt safer that way. Easier. But you make me want to be brave. You make me think that maybe trying again isn't foolish. So what does that mean? He asked gently. She looked up at him, at his hopeful eyes and nervous smile. It means I want to see where this goes. It means I'm tired of protecting myself from good things just because bad things happened before. They stood there for a long moment, the space between them charged with possibility. Then Arjun reached for her hand, his fingers warm and sure around hers. She didn't pull away. They continued walking, hands linked, neither of them speaking because words weren't necessary anymore. When they reached her apartment building, Priya turned to face him on the steps. The streetlight above them flickered slightly, casting dancing shadows. "Can I see you tomorrow?" Arjun asked. "Not for volunteer work or fundraiser planning. Just us." "I'd like that," she said, smiling. He squeezed her hand once before letting go. "Good night, Priya." "Good night, Arjun." She climbed the stairs to her apartment, her legs feeling light, almost floating. Inside, she leaned against the closed door and let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Arjun. Just 3 words. "I'm really glad." She typed back, "Me too." That night, Priya lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Her mind replayed every moment of the evening, every word of their conversation under the neem tree. She felt scared and excited in equal measure, like standing at the edge of something vast and unknown. But for the first time in years, the fear didn't make her want to run away. Instead, it made her want to step forward, to see what waited on the other side of taking a chance. She thought about the rain that had brought them together, about how the worst moments sometimes led to the best surprises. And she thought about Arjun, about his kindness and his honesty, about the way he looked at her like she was someone worth knowing. As she finally drifted toward sleep, a smile played at the corners of her mouth. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. The next 2 months felt like living in a dream Priya didn't want to wake up from. She and Arjun fell into an easy rhythm, finding ways to see each other despite their busy schedules. Weekend mornings meant exploring parts of the city they'd never visited before, discovering small temples hidden in narrow lanes, trying street food from vendors who'd been cooking in the same spot for 40 years. Weekday evenings meant quiet dinners at modest restaurants where they could talk for hours, or simple walks through the park where old couples fed pigeons and children played cricket. Arjun introduced her to his world. He took her to the community center on days when he taught photography to the children, and Priya watched as he patiently showed a shy 10-year-old girl how to find the right angle, how to capture light. He shared his favorite music with her, old songs his mother used to play, and taught her the stories behind them. With him, everything felt lighter, easier. Priya showed him her dreams too. She shared the business plans she had been developing in secret, sketches and notes about the company she wanted to build someday. He listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he understood not just what she wanted to do, but why it mattered to her. He never made her feel foolish for having big ambitions. Instead, he made her believe they were possible. Her friends noticed the change in her. They said she smiled more, worried less, seemed more present in conversations. His friends teased him about being distracted, about checking his phone constantly for her messages. But neither of them minded the teasing. They were happy in a way that felt both fragile and solid at the same time. They talked about futures tentatively, carefully, like people afraid to jinx something good. She mentioned wanting to travel someday, to see mountains and oceans. He said he'd always wanted to document rural India through photography, to tell stories that usually went untold. They didn't make concrete plans, but the way they talked included each other, assumed each other's presence in the undefined later. Then everything changed on a random Thursday afternoon. Arjun called her during his lunch break, his voice strange, tight with emotion she couldn't quite read. "Can we meet after you finish work? I need to talk to you about something." Her stomach dropped. Those words, that tone, never meant anything good. But she kept her voice steady. "Of course." "Same place as always?" They met at their usual spot, a quiet tea stall with plastic chairs arranged under a large banyan tree. Arjun was already there when she arrived, staring at his phone with an expression that made her heart race with worry. "What's wrong?" she asked, sitting across from him. He looked up, and she saw conflict written all across his face. "I got a call this morning from a national NGO based in Delhi. They want me to head their youth education program for the northern region. It's everything I've been working toward, Priya. The kind of opportunity that doesn't come twice." She felt the ground shift beneath her, but she forced herself to smile. "That's wonderful, Arjun. You deserve this." "It means moving to Delhi," he said quietly. "Next month." The words hung between them like smoke. Next month, 4 weeks away. Priya's mind raced through calculations, through possibilities, through the sudden reality that what they had might have an expiration date. "We can do long distance," she said, trying to sound confident. "People do it all the time. It's only a few hours by train."